Any Australian major city has at its heart an area where rents are low. You can get about on foot, and you can't tell what a person is just by the way they look. It's called the inner city, and just about every nationality and religion is represented here. Many inner city dwellers are young people living in exile from the suburbs. Many are jobless and are looking for something outside the ordinary. This film looks at the punks, the mods and the skinheads, the three major groups of the inner city youth culture.
Like, because I was just in the suburbs, I didn't have friends who could relate to what I was doing, what I felt inside towards different things that I'm interested in. And sort of found my way to the city and started finding interesting people that you could talk to them and they could relate to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, punk then wasn't sort of the wild thing it is now with bright hair and things like that. But it was the interest of the people and the things that they shared about unemployment and troubles in the family and with society and things like that.
Music is very, very important. Like, that's right in the middle, and it's what really starts a lot of it is you're into a certain kind of music, so you can buy the whole bag. You get the clothes, you get the haircut, you get everything. You just get the lifestyle.
In the 60s, it was reported that mods lived 60 hours in a weekend. Well, that's, it's pretty close to the truth. Try and get as much as you can into the short time that, I don't know, you're young or whatever.
With a bit of style.
With style, yeah.
What's the most important thing? Is it the people, the music, or the clothes, or is it...
music and people, and beliefs. Standing up for your rights, having some self-dignity.
These groups have two things in common. They originated in England, and they're distinctive because of their visual style. They have much in common with their graffiti. Their look is their statement. Their style suggests their rebellion. Their expression is their feeling of impotence about society and a kind of raw power. Time magazine has dubbed them the New Tribes. In this film, we take a look at them and their members in Australia.
I don't mind if you say yeah, huh? Yeah, huh? Yeah, huh? Yeah, huh? Yeah, huh? Yeah, huh? Yeah.
Punk dominated Australian live music from 1977 to 1980. Radio Birdman was the biggest punk band of that time. At this 1978 concert, their hair may have been long, but the sound was pure power punk. Punk's rough look and sound was not for everybody. In 1980, around the world, new wave became the soft alternative. And about the same time, we had the rebirth of that English phenomenon of the 60s, mods. And they're still with us. This isn't swinging London, it's Australia today.
Mods were punks in the first place, but they got tired of that. They wanted to move into something that looked a bit sharper, a bit cleaner, a bit smoother, a bit neater. I think it was mainly a style thing, though. They just got sick and tired of the scruffy punk image, basically.
They copied a style that peaked in 1963-64. English kids then wanted a change from the yobbishness of the 1950s. They took European influences to heart, dressed in sharp suits, rode motor scooters, and danced to black rhythm and blues music. And they had their own bands, like The Who. Stephen Detra was part of Australia's mod revival. He's no longer a mod. At 27, he's too old. And these days, his scooter rusts away in his backyard. Stephen puts out a small music magazine dealing with rhythm and blues and new bands.
Most people that I talk to now who are there with us, they say that they had a tremendous sort of feeling like butterflies in the stomach on a Friday night before they were going to go out. They thought, oh, well, it's going to be a great weekend. And you'd go down to the Sussex on a Friday night just to find out what bands were playing, and then go on to one of the venues.
The Sussex Hotel has been home to many groups: the Sydney Push, anti-Vietnam groups, and the women's movement. Today, the future of this historic hotel is uncertain, as the Sussex has been closed down by its owners, the Sydney City Council. Some of our best bands started off here. The band that best represented the mods was the Sets. It's a legacy of punk that their sound was harder than the 60s mod bands that went before. These are today's mods. Their average age is 18, and most of them work. It's difficult to be a mod if you can't pay for clothes or a scooter. So what's the attraction of the mod lifestyle?
For the majority of us, it's the scooters, the clothes, the music, everything.
And it's how you are in your head as well. I mean, you'll see guys who look pretty mod. They've got a 3-button suit on and a skinny tie, but they're not mods at all. And
so what's the difference? You've got a skinny tie and a 3-button suit on, so what's the difference between you and them?
I guess it's how you are in your head, being mod in the head. I mean,
It's not a big shame, it's true.
yeah, it is.
It's just the way you think.
It's, if you feel mod, live for everything that is mod, it's hard to put a finger on that.
Perhaps the most important thing about being a mod is belonging to the group. Most 18-year-olds have a very intense view of life. In a group, there's security, you have fun, and personal problems are kept at a distance.
To me, they kind of strike me as like a social club, and the idea always was you have a big rave up on the weekend and struggle during the week to hold down a job if you've got a job. But no, I think off you go on a scooter run down to the beach or something like that. It's a real social thing.
Clinton Walker is a music journalist living in the inner city. He writes for major newspapers and has written a book about inner city music.
They are kids who have actually gone and looked for something different, consciously looked for something different, in most cases, I would say. I think in Australian society, and especially for kids in high school, it's very easy to drift into what you would see as being a fairly normal kind of kid, go down the beach or you play footy on the weekends and things like that. Whereas these kids really have rejected that, and they've gone into something where music is valued very highly. And there are other factors like, they're doing something very different. Maybe they take a lot of drugs as well as part of these subcultures, which you wouldn't expect of a normal Australian kid, say.
Mods are not concerned with politics and rebellion. They stand united. For them, politics inside the group is the most important thing. Bedroom politics is how one mod described it. It's hard to say how many mods there are, but they support a flourishing underground magazine market. So what do mods do on the longed-for weekend?
The mods weekend, right, well, we start off, we meet at the pub, our pub that we have, and generally everybody knows what's going to happen because they've looked up the gig guide to see if there's any bands on. So we'll sit down there for a while, get all prepared, everybody talk about things, then we go out to a band. We'll go out, just have a great night and dance all night if we can. But if there's not bands on, generally somebody will throw a party. There's usually things to do there.
Your leisure leisure time is important to you. So you really want to enjoy it, whatever you do. I mean, the person who collects butterflies is really serious about it, and someone who's a mod now is serious about it. You know, they want to have a good time, and what we think about it compared to what we used to do is totally irrelevant. What these kids now are having is a good time for them compared to what they probably were doing in the past.
Back in the 60s, everybody didn't earn as much money as they do now. They weren't as affluent. Now we've got more money. We're rebelling not against the poverty of the society, but against, I suppose, the yobs and just the deadbeats of society.
Is that like the rest of suburbia, or?
Oh, just people that haven't got any direction, just don't know what they're doing.
Well, in the 60s, there was a lot of style. Even people who weren't mods wore three-button suits and skinny ties. Now, today, there's very little style. There are people in long stubbies and crystal cylinder surf shirts, and there's no style there. And so it's the style. I mean, we're the style. We have style, and 98% of civilization who drive around in panel vans with boards on the roof and things, there's no style there. Thongs aren't style.
Do you have any opinion on the mods?
I reckon they're pretty harmless, as far as I'm concerned. You know.
And you reckon most of them are gay, do you?
Most they're all bent, I reckon.
Why?
I don't know, they all get around little motor scooters with little funny hats and they all just look alike, I reckon.
So, with no shorts and thongs, don't the mods feel uncomfortable in their suits and ties in the Australian heat?
Hot on the outside, but cool on the inside.
I mean, mods have a bit of a reputation for drugs like speed and all that sort of thing. Is that still the case?
Hi, Mum. Hi,
And of course, one day soon, these kids will be too old to be mods themselves.
It is a young thing, any way you look at it, but it's also a state of mind. And I guess you can always think mod, but you can't always be a mod because you do get too old for it.
It's not particularly when you reach 24 or when you reach 28, you can't be a mod anymore. It's just when you can't keep up with the pace, with the mod lifestyle, and then...
Wife wouldn't let you.
Yeah, the kids would get upset.
Skinhead to me was just my way of life now. I couldn't see anything else for me. It's hard on the outside, but on the inside, I don't know, it's hard again on the inside, but then you look at it, you meet the people, and then you'll find a different person from what you think a skinhead really is.
The venue is called The Pits, and this is a skinhead's night out.
Like, I used to be a mod, and when you went out, you were really sort of straight-laced and worried, because mods worry about their image. Whereas skinheads will go out and they don't give a damn. And that's how they get in trouble too. Because they'll do whatever they want, and people think, oh, you know, look at this yobbo, and they'll have a go. But skinhead's a fun thing to be into. You've got good music to dance to, and you're tight. Like, everyone wants to belong to a group, and if you're a skinhead, you've got a good, tight group.
The skinheads have a reputation for rough and tough behaviour, and sometimes the police become involved. Each group has its own bands and pubs, but occasionally there's conflict.
Well, they don't like each other a lot, I don't think. They squabble, I would say. They have their own territory and they tend to stick to it, I guess, and when there is a crossover you might get some trouble, but they tend to keep apart from each other pretty well.
Now you've got all these different people living in the city, living around the city, and they're all sort of fighting against each other.
No, I don't intend to frighten anybody. I intend to look the way I want, even if I had long hair. And people said, oh, if it was in the 60s and I had long hair, I'd have been frightening people then because I was a hippie. Now I could have long hair and I'd still be frightening people. I mean, people I'm frightening is not kids my age. I'm frightening people 10 years, 30 years older than me.
It's, you know, not liking the other cult or not liking the other group. You know, it's all that now. You've got so much more opposition now.
I mean, I might front a few my age. I hope so, anyway.
I was involved in a thing with some skinheads, and I got a broken jaw. It's my fault I was involved in it. But I was involved in it because I'm a mod.
Everybody's always on the defensive. No one ever claims to be an aggressor, and like I guess we're as defensive as anyone. Like the thing that happened with Andy and myself, it's territorial. Like we have a pub, the skinheads will have a pub, the punks have a pub, and of course we're at a pub, and if the skinheads come down there, I mean they know it. They know it's our pub, and it's a defensive thing, protecting, I don't know, your little part of the inner city or whatever. But no one will ever claim to be the aggressor.
You've got to fight for what you believe in. That's right. If you want to be a skinhead and wear these sort of clothes and walk down the street, people are just going to pass you.
The major difference between any of these groups is music. The mods dance to their music and the skins dance to a different beat. Skinhead music is called ska, and they call themselves ska skins.
Ska is a prehistoric form of reggae, and that was sort of the first sort of noises that were coming out of Jamaica in the late 60s after the blacks in Jamaica started listening to American soul music, which was coming over from Florida, the radio. So in a way, I suppose skinheads and the mods have something in common, and they all do come from black music, is always really important to those two groups.
Skinheads last flourished in England 15 years ago. They grew as a reaction against the cosmic ideas of the hippies. Their origins are working class as their boots and braces declare. But why is skinhead being revived in Australia in the mid-1980s?
It hasn't been revived, it's changed a lot over the years. It went from being sort of short cropped hair to having hair with tails at the back and stuff like that. That's where the Sharpies over here come from. Went to smoothies, suede heads, which were basically just old skinheads, gone smooth. The fashion's changed from tight trousers to flares, high-waisters, angel wing collars, all that lot, but it's never really died.
Now it gets a little confusing at this stage as there are two types of skinhead. There are the ska skins and there's the oi skins. And again, the difference is best shown through their music. Oi music has a lot in common with punk.
Hello, Mum.
The confusion arises here because these are mainly oi skins dancing to ska music. The ois generally look tougher. They have tattoos, their hair is shorter, and their politics are more extreme. This was the ska skinheads' night, but the ois came along and they seem to be having more fun than anybody. For both the scars and the ois, skinhead is a way of life.
Yeah, it was just being a skin, the whole feeling of being a skin and doing what we were doing. Going out of pubs, having a few drinks, going to see the band, having a great laugh. Even after that, we'd go to parties. And even if it was a dull night, we'd go home at 12 o'clock. There was something great about that night, being a skin. And when I wasn't a skin before that, I look back now and say, what a bore it was. I used to go to the movies every Saturday night, go play Space Invaders. What a bore.
So the ska skins are just out for a good time. Politics is not an issue. Like the mods, it's the clothes, the music and the group.
Politics don't come into it at all.
It comes into
yes.
It comes into boys and things like that. You get sort of fascists. But with ska skins, a lot of the skins around here, they're not that much into politics. It's something you forget about. You go out and you just forget about it. The only time I think about it is when I've got to vote.
In England now, there's a new movement called Oi, which you've heard the Oi skins in Sydney, which they all follow. Mainly I think they follow that because the music is just they want. But the skin image is the image that's going to go against the government because people are scared of it. It just looks too rough. If you're showing something by walking down the street looking like a skin for in the first place, I mean, you're showing aggression, and aggression you can show against the government, pushing you away.
The Oi skinhead culture in England is a potent mix of working class and right-wing politics, outrageous music, and ridicule of conservative businessmen and Mrs. Thatcher's government. In Australia, their numbers are small. Their extremism isn't as fierce. But if you meet them face to face, you should take them seriously. Most other groups are scared of the Ois.
So they should be.
Why do you reckon they should be?
I know, they'd beat us up, wouldn't they? If we were scared of them, they'd beat us up.
So who do they fight with mainly?
Most people that we do get a problem off is ethnics.
Right.
Yeah.
And who are the ethnics in particular? Which ethnics?
Pleb.
Are they heavy fights?
Not really.
Because the Lebanese look after themselves, I reckon.
Yeah. Especially when they carry knowledge. Again, 6 to 1. Yeah.
Well, do you think it's like that they're looking after themselves, or?
No, I don't think it is at all. It's not, that's the religion, isn't it? They're like they go to court with a knife and the knife around the leg. That's the religion. So the court just turns around and says, "Oh yeah, that's all right," because they've been brought up that way.
Yeah.
Because the boys wear boots and braces and have a good pop with the hooligans.
Do you like fighting?
Yeah.
Why do you like it?
It's just good. Good for your health. Bad for theirs. Good so you're frustrated.
Relieves the tension.
Well, the skinheads have actually been aligned to sort of neo-fascist groups and things like that. And I mean, they're very heavy. They can be. They're very mean-looking. Everybody knows that. But I mean. Their politics definitely veer very far right. I mean, they believe in the mother country. They're very racist, just generally very far right, I would say.
With all this love of the mother country and English accents, I wondered how many are Australian-born. The answer is probably about half.
A lot of skins you will find are English, or maybe you've got English parentage. I mean, nowadays, maybe some of these skins, their dads were skins in England.
Not all skinheads are racists. Some even lean the other way. But it's the racist attitudes that cause outrage. Thank you. And we'll look at that in a moment. Racism presents itself in many ways all over Australia. But the racist attitudes of the skinheads have gained lots of media attention.
Everybody, I mean...
Where I live in Marrickville, it's an ethnic community. When I was at school, there was 131 form with 15 Australians and about 4 half-breeds.
Maybe we'll just talk about it more openly than what the normal subversive Australian will. We'll come out and say, you know,
I've been
whatever.
in school with them, and I've heard them talk about different nationalities coming out, and they've hated them. And we always seem to mainly because of the way we dress. And if we say it out loud, then we get in trouble just because of the way we dress. But if any person with hair down past their ears and has a pair of Sanchez, a jeans and a t-shirt on, they say it, nothing's a thought about it.
Most skinheads do agree on one thing: the halting of Asian immigration into Australia. And the Ois put it down to the need for jobs.
It's fair enough if one wants to come here and he's going to do something that'll help us, you know. Like if we're short of we're short of doctors or something, if we haven't got them, well, fair enough. But when they come over here and they haven't even got a job, you know, and we haven't either, why should they get interest-free loans and that, you know? Why burden us if they've got something they can do? Why bring unemployment over here?
Because they come over in, like, how many of them have got jobs and we ain't? And they reckon they're all starving, all that, look at all the brand new cars that they drive around in there, around the city and that.
I mean, they might have worked hard for them or something like that.
Yeah, they walk off the plane and get $2,000.
They walk home, the government goes and gives them all this money and so
They're denouncing the government's assistance to refugees.
and they just get off the plane and get a job.
They go in factories and they work for twice as less as anybody else and nobody knows about it.
The Skins in England were very strongly associated with the National Front. What happened there, I guess what's happened here to a certain extent, is they don't like to be used by these movements, but they like to identify with them. At the same time, they don't want to feel as if these movements are using them to be strong-arm boys or to be a good image to have up front or something. So they're in a bit of a bind themselves. I mean, they identify with it, but they don't like to get pushed around either.
100,000 in a rally in Spain. They still join NATO all the same. And yet again,
The Ois are one extreme of the inner-city culture. The punks are another. It's the uncertainty of the times, the threat of war and unemployment that affects both groups.
Well, I think these groups are just a lot more desperate than they were ever previously, because the world is in a more desperate situation. These kids are unemployed, whereas in the 60s it wasn't so bad, say. There's the nuclear threat. Any of the other woes of the world that you want to add up, these kids are feeling it more and more and more. So they're pushing harder themselves. They're pushing further into their own pocket, I suppose, to find some security.
Good afternoon, A Human Animal.
Artist Mike Mullins has a particular view of the way our society is evolving.
Yep.
His view led him to spend 3 weeks in a cage at the zoo as an exhibit called The Human Animal.
What do you eat?
Regular food.
Do you eat steaks or do you get
Just
raw?
what I regularly eat. I've actually eaten very healthy food since I've been in here. Feel terrific for it.
Meat pies?
Once I've been off the grog.
How do you get on with the other animals?
Pretty well, actually.
As Mike leads us to think of our relationship with nature, he points to the nuclear cloud on the horizon, suggesting that it's an influence on the behaviour of young people today.
I was born in 51. I'm born in the shadow of the nuclear bomb. That changes everything. Under that shadow, humanity has created something that can destroy the planet. And that makes us different, we who are born since then. And in this, there is this sense of abandonment. This sort of punk movement and the word anarchy and the word sort of hate is real strong. I think there's a huge disillusionment. You know, we're educated to be someone, yet most of us will be no ones.
We want to be noticed, like we're just not going to be another statistic or just a...
Yeah, just another little number.
Another number in another little house in another little country, and, you know.
The inner city life is not without its drama. For many of these kids, their appearance limits work opportunities and attracts the attention of police.
Well, like, the police are just people, you know. You get your good police and your bad police. And, like, you get these guys who think, you know, punks are just sort of these delirious buggers who go around kicking in shop windows or whatever. And, you know, they just, every time they see punk, they pick him up, beat him up, rip his earrings out, you know, push him around, hassle him, whatever. But then you get these guys who are really good, you know, who just sort of treat you like a person the way they should do. But there's often friction, you know, especially if you're a weirdo sort of person. Often they just push you around as a sort of warning just in case you're going to step out of line, you know, sort of preventative measures.
And what's the police view? Mr. Killen is the police chief superintendent of the metropolitan area.
I don't see them as a threat to society any more than any other group of people would be a threat to society. There are those amongst them capable of committing most serious crime, and indeed some of them have. And I call to mind a murder that was committed in the city, inner city area in 1982, where a young fellow and his a young girlfriend in fact killed an elderly gentleman who was on his way to work early one morning. And the net proceeds of that effort was that they took his work lunch from him. Generally, in my assessment and of the way I see things from my position, they don't represent a great problem from a policing point of view at all.
Like, we've had a lot of bad experience with the police. Like, we've even had a friend die from the police. Like, because the way he looked, he was picked up and was killed by the police. I don't know if you can put that on your TV or not, but it's a fact that he was bashed by the police and died. because of what he was and the way he looked.
David McIntosh was 20 when he died.